Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad. Yes, do smash the like button. If you love me, subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. Last night, I had the great privilege and honour of seeing an early screening of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 out here in Cyprus, in the Nicosia, Cyprus Mall. Now, I'm a big fan of James Gunn's Guardians movies. It's where I discovered him as a director. It's where most of us discovered him as a director. But my motivations were selfish as a DC fan. As a DC fan, I wanted to go and see this final chapter and see, has he matured as a writer-director? What can he give me, a DC fan, in terms of Superman and DC on a whole? And I was very, very impressed with what I saw. Was I surprised that he rounded his trilogy off so well, that it was so emotional, that it had commentary about brutal animal cruelty, the themes and the emotions and the laughs all put together in one ball? Was I surprised? No, because James Gunn is good at what he does. I've already said that I'm excited for him joining DC, but at the same time I've said I have my concerns as well, because I have a balance. After a week of shills telling us that the Flash movie is better than War and Peace and Gone with the Wind, I think balance, and you people getting balance and honesty from someone, is very, very important. But this is a good film. A great film, maybe. Definitely the best MCU film since Endgame and Infinity War. That's not saying very much, but it's a very, very good film. Mick, stop talking about Marvel. This is a DC Universe daily video, but this is important. This is the writer-director who holds DC in his hands. And after seeing this film, I'm very, very excited for our future under James Gunn. The Guardians trilogy is about outsiders with a rough exterior being ousted by our society. They're you and they're me. In fact, they could even be Snyder fans. They could be Zack Snyder. Why? What's Zack Snyder got to do with it? Zack Snyder, during Batman vs. Superman, when it was released in the early days, was abused, he was mocked, he was bullied. Zack Snyder had two decisions to make. Do I use fire with fire? Do I come back and attack these people? Or do I keep my own counsel and be quiet? It's a bit like those two moments in Man of Steel. When that guy in the bar is, sexually harassing the barmaid and he's pouring beer all over Clark. Clark could beat the shit out of him, but he doesn't. He holds his temper. When Whitney is bullying him in the flashback, he's holding on to the bar. He's controlling himself. This is what heroes do. What's this got to do with Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3? What's it got to do with James controlling DC? Hell of a lot. Because these Guardians, these rough characters with a rough exterior, disbanded from society, have two decisions. Do we get angry? Do we become criminals? Do we hurt people because society has hurt us? Or do we try to be good people? The Guardians use love. It's hard. Love is hard. It's easy to hate and be angry. When someone attacks you on social media, it's easy to attack them back, but to think about it. Why are these people so angry? Why are Snyderverse fans so angry with the rest of fandom? Because they were abused and bullied during BVS. And society created them. So this is what James Gunn is trying to say with his Guardians trilogy. And it's a very, very important statement. Instead of saying, all men are bad and all women are good and all minorities are good, the usual extremist shit that we get in entertainment today, the theme of animal cruelty in this film, it's the theme of just because someone's cruel to you, it doesn't give you the excuse to be cruel back. These are the themes of James Gunn. And this is what he means when he feels like Superman. James Gunn is the Guardians. Ousted by Hollywood, he couldn't get a look in until Kevin Feige, a very smart bloke, said, I like this guy. This guy can make me some really good films. So they made Guardians together. And it was a big hit because people like the idea of outsiders doing good. It's why Rocky has spanned now, 7, 8, 9 movies. Because Rocky is a Cinderella story. The Guardians is a Cinderella story. It's about people with a rough exterior. And when we see people with rough exteriors, we discredit them. We say they're this, we say they're that. And this is the story that James Gunn is telling. So when he talks about he feels like Superman, this is what he means. Superman is the ultimate immigrant, the ultimate outsider. Superman has so much to be angry about. Orphaned as a baby and brought up on another planet. He'll never get to see Krypton. He'll never get to see the Kryptonian moonlight. He'll never get to remember being in his mother's and father's arms and in the safety of his parents. He had a life ripped away from him. But instead of being angry with his new world, who didn't cause the problems of Krypton, he embraces his new home and he becomes our savior, our protector, taking a very tragic moment and instead of being angry, having love in his heart. And this is what James Gunn means by what he does in Guardians. This is what he means by saying, he feels like Superman. So this is a very positive thing. Now, going deeper than that, when you go and see this film, if you go and see this film, and I suggest that you do, because as I say, I didn't see this as a Marvel shill. Now, I love early Phase 1 and 2 Marvel. They're films that focus on, the individual vision of those directors, but they also expanded to connect to a connective universe. It was a very groundbreaking idea, and this is why people were enjoying it in its early days. So James Gunn says he's learnt a lot about, running a shared universe from Kevin Feige. Now, he spoke about Infinity War and not liking the representation of Chris Pratt's Star-Lord, saying it was out of character. This is something else, a good thing, that James Gunn can give us with this new DC Universe connective franchise. If Superman is in Superman Legacy and he's acting a certain way, if he's going to be in an authority movie, he's got to act like the same person he was in Superman Legacy. This is what James Gunn can give us. Consistency, logic, and common sense. When you look at the Guardians Volume 3 movie, when we see the bad CGI in other Marvel movies, James Gunn uses another VFX company, his own VFX company. So the VFX is perfection in Guardians 1, 2, and 3. There's not the same issues. No one's attacking this movie because the themes are good, the commentaries are good, but what's very, very important when you're making social commentary is that the social commentary doesn't outshine your story. This is the problem with modern day entertainment. The message outshines their stories. Not that they've got much of a story anyway. But James Gunn and talented people like him don't do that. James Gunn, in my mind, has always been a talented writer-director. My concerns have been, can he make a great Superman movie? And now I'm a little bit more convinced that we've got the right man at DC for the job, and it's very, very exciting that we've got him. Because even though the reviews for Guardians Volume 2 weren't great, I think it was a really good movie. It's a darker movie, it's still funny, it's still action-packed, but the themes of a father, and the son, it's very kind of Luke and Darth Vader in a lot of ways. When he first meets his father, Star-Lord, he thinks he's met a good person. Then he realizes that he murdered his mother, that he's a bad person, and he wants to use Star-Lord for bad things. I think the way that movie is done is excellent, and the themes that are used are brilliant. So James Gunn's very good at using these themes, and this is why I think he's going to be very, very good for DC Universe. There's a lot of shills around James Gunn. Sometimes shills make us act badly about directors and actors because they trigger us. But we've got to stop reacting and being reactive. What we want is the best thing for DC, and there is no question James Gunn has done an imperious job with his Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. It's got everything. As I say, it's got action, it's got comedy, it's pure entertainment. But there are deeper themes wrapped in a really bright, entertaining ball. But the themes never outstretch or never dominate or dictate its entertainment value. And this is where great storytelling works. In the Star Wars prequels, we got a double lightsaber, we got the beautiful Naboo, we got the brilliant pod race. But behind that is a story about a dictator's rise to power. That whole trilogy that people hated. People hated what Lucas did with the prequels because it was different. But how did they think the Empire rose to power in the original trilogy? It's one of the most genius plans ever. And Lucas is a genius for putting it together. And this is why I always appreciate the prequels. I appreciate all of George's 6 Star Wars episodes and Clone Wars. That's Star Wars for me, and I think now Star Wars should be retired. Sometimes you've got to know when enough is enough. Sometimes you've got to know when to leave something alone. And so James Gunn can do a really, really good job with the DC Universe. But the question is, will he be allowed to? Despite people looking at him and probably think he's a bit of a yes man, I think that James Gunn is a very, very clever man. When he was fired from Disney, there's a reason why he got his job back. Chris Pratt has spoken about his tactics to get James Gunn his job back when he was fired. And I think Disney should leave the Guardians franchise alone now because no one can do as good a job as James can. Now, it's been left in a certain way. Some, stories have been wrapped and some of the characters will not be able to be used again because their stories have ended. But there's a kind of, if you like, a new team now that they can play with. Personally, I think you should just leave it alone. But what this trilogy and this latest movie shows that James Gunn knows how to do a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And Volume 3 is a great ending. There's no question about that. There are issues within the movie, certain character underused and things like that. But I think the story is about its main characters. That's what this story is about. And being faithful to a character like Rocket. Growing up, my favourite Star Wars character was Chewbacca. This was an animal, a beast, an alien who couldn't speak a word of English. Let me say that again. Now, I can't speak a word of English. Couldn't speak a word of English, but I got Chewie. I understood who he was. He was Han Solo's best friend, and his loyalty to Han was a beautiful thing. His reaction to Leia's death in The Rise of Skywalker, again, really gets me. That's when her death affects me in that movie, through Chewie's reaction. But I think that Rocket is a great example of what Gunn does. Gunn is an animal lover. And I think he'll use a lot of animals in his new DC universe, most probably in animation, but also in his live action too. I think kids would appreciate James having, Crypto, the Superdog in Superman Legacy, done in an uncheesy way, of course. And it's important that I put that one in. But I think that James Gunn has got a package that children and families can enjoy. And that's important. As much as I love the Snyderverse, it wasn't made for children and families. Warner Brothers Discovery are a business. And the Super Mario Brothers movie has proven that they're the most important audience. After this weekend, the Super Mario Brothers movie will hit over $1 billion. So it's a great entertaining movie first and foremost, because what do we care how much money a $1 trillion company made, right? but it's a statement of intent. The entertainment comes first and the message must always come second. That's very, very important going forward, or they will continue to lose money. And so I don't know if I can trust Zaslav, but I believe that James Gunn is a really, really good storyteller. As I've said many times, he's not Scorsese, he's not Coppola. Some people believe he's the modern day version of those great directors. He's not. But he's very good at what he does. You know, for me, it's like talking about Spielberg and E.T., right? So James Gunn is on that level. Spielberg in E.T. creates this family drama about a single mother whose husband has left her. She's not handling the family very well. She's under pressure. She's a working mum. The youngest son, Elliot, is feeling lonely. He's missing his father. He's resenting his mother. He needs a friend. And in E.T., he makes one. So I think that Gunn is on this level and can give us a very interesting Superman movie, because now I see it. Maybe I was being a little bit bigoted towards James Gunn, like the rest of Hollywood has been in the past. Oh, this guy, this flawed guy, he's done this, he's said this, he's done this. We don't want him working in our beautiful little mainstream industry. But look at the money he's made Disney. And him leaving Marvel at this time is a devastating situation for Kevin Feige. Because look at it, this is the first film that the Marvel fandom are saying, this is brilliant. This is the first film that everyone who talks about films on social media is saying, yeah, this is great. This is more like it. Dial back and remember the reaction to Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania. So how Kevin Feige has allowed this situation to happen and allowing James Gunn to leave is, to me, it's an own goal. It certainly is. Now, my views about James Gunn are still very, very balanced. I see the red flags. His hesitation to direct Superman Legacy as well as write it, you know, isn't lost on me. But he's made the decision. He's written it. He has got the intellect and the nous and the tools to make a really good Superman mainstream movie. And let's be absolutely clear now. DC, WB, but especially Superman, needs a mainstream Superman movie. I was talking the other day about my theory about it being a Superman No Way Home, using Brandon Routh, using Henry Cavill. Even if he doesn't do it, I'm still excited about that movie. Because as a Superman fan, I'm always excited about the next Superman movie. But this is the most important Superman movie in the history of Superman. Now, Superman the movie was also very important because at the time, Superman was losing popularity in his own country. The Vietnam War had changed the kind of heroes that people looked up to. And the Salkinds and Donner put Superman back on the map. And this is what James Gunn needs to do. And if he does this, he's done the impossible. He's done things other directors haven't been able to do. People like Bryan Singer, people like Zack Snyder. I love Superman Returns. I nearly said Batman Returns. I love Man of Steel, but they didn't do the job the studio needed them to do because they took a selfish look at Superman. They made the Superman they wanted to make. That's not a criticism, that's a statement of fact. Now, James Gunn has to make a Superman that works for everyone. Because as much as I love the Snyderverse stands, because I'm an admirer of the director, myself, you know, all they care about is Zack Snyder and restoring the Snyderverse. They don't necessarily care about DC as DC. They only care about the DC Snyderverse. Now, as much as I love Zack Snyder and I'd love the Snyderverse to be restored, my number one concern is the future of DC and the future of Superman and Batman and the rest of these iconic characters. And I think, you know, as I said a few days ago, going forward, I'm going to have a more open mind about James Gunn. Of course, I've questioned the decision not to carry on with Henry Cavill. I see the positives of that and I see the negatives of that. Henry Cavill was brought back a few months later. He wasn't Superman. It's messy. Whether James Gunn made the decision a few months earlier, or Zaslav, or Agbi and DeLuca did, it's still very messy. It doesn't matter who made that decision. What I would say to you is, going back to Guardians Volume 3, go and see it. It's evidence that potentially DC and Superman have got a brave, bright new future. But nobody knows until we actually see what he's going to do. But what is clear is we're going to get family-centric stuff. But then when you look at something like Swamp Thing, I think that will be a bit more of a deeper dive. Maybe even an R-rated movie. I'm not sure. And then you've got the DC Elseworlds thing, which was his idea as well. Bringing in auteur directors with a singular vision is very important. The kind of plays Zack Snyder would fit in with Matt Reeves and Todd Phillips perfectly. But again, my perspective isn't just about Snyder. As I said earlier, it's about making DC great. And it's about DC, in these really tough times where superheroes aren't as popular as they used to be, making this universe the most popular thing in cinema. But to be clear, the reason the superhero genre has taken a dip isn't because people are fed up of superheroes. They're fed up of mid-superhero content. Superheroes will always be popular. No, it's not like westerns and cowboys. Superheroes will always be cool and have always been cool. So yes, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is evidence that maybe things are heading in a very exciting direction with DC. And once all the marketing for Guardians 3 is over, James will be focusing on the future with DC, and that's very exciting for me, and it should be exciting for you if you're a genuine DC fan. You know why I love Jason Momoa? Because he's refreshingly honest. Now, in an interview over at Variety or whoever he originally gave it to, he says he was baffled and astonished by the success of the first Aquaman, as I was and you was. The reason that film is successful because it's a palate cleanser to Justice League. It's directed by a visual director. It looks great. It takes Aquaman, a character that was mocked and memed for years, and taking a serious approach. Now, Zack Snyder was the one who began this serious approach. So that's why that movie made over $1 billion. It looks good, the music's compelling, the storytelling's compelling. I really like that film. Now, should it have made $1 billion? Look, I don't know. There's no such thing as a perfect film. Aquaman isn't the perfect movie. Now, Momoa got very, very frank about Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom for the first time. Now, this is what he had to say. He wrote a 50-page treatment with a friend for Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. To be clear, they're not using Jason's 50-page treatment. Now, if you don't know Jason very well, he's a climate change activist. Now, I am not a climate change denier. I'm not the Kryptonian Council. I believe we have a big issue. Our climate is changing, and we need to protect the next generation, and we need to protect this beautiful world. My belief is that we've treated the planet Earth like it's ours to do what we want. With our advances in technology, what we've done is we've walked onto the planet Earth, we've walked mud onto the carpet, and we haven't even taken our shoes off. We've abused this planet. So Jason's a huge climate activist. And there's this big, beautiful speech at the UN by Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman, in this film. Very, very similar to the speech Christopher Reeve's Superman makes to the UN and address in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. That may not be the best of movies, but that moment always brings tears to my eyes. And this is a great moment for Momoa's Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman. So when you hear some negatives about the test screenings, some people may not like the climate change activism side of the movie. Now, Peter Safran, the co-CEO of DC Studios, has spoken about Jason's future. He said, even if he doesn't continue to play Arthur Curry, aka Aquaman, he hopes to be working with Jason at DC Studios for a great many years. And this is, I think now we're getting a bit more honesty, where before Jason goes, he's convinced he will continue to play Aquaman. They now know everything is about box office. So it's like the Flash movie. James again was asked about the future of Ezra Miller. We're going to have to wait and see. It's about box office. I think preferably they won't want to use Ezra. I don't know if the Flash movie gets a sequel. Andres Muschietti has spoken about the potential of a sequel. I don't know. I think preferably James may use Ezra Miller sparingly and bring another version of the Flash like Wally West. That would be my preference as well. But we'll see. But in terms of Jason Momoa, he ain't a problematic lad. He ain't a criminal. He's very supportive of his fellow castmates like Ezra Miller, which you can understand. We're not in that situation. We're not them. But yeah, I like Jason's honesty that he was baffled by the success of Aquaman. I mean, I laughed when I read that headline. I thought it was great. But yeah, I want him to have a future in DC Universe. As I say, whether it's Aquaman or they use a more, comic book accurate version of Aquaman, which I suspect James may want to do, and that'll be an interesting thing. I do suspect he will continue in the DC Universe as the character we all think he's going to play, and play a huge role also in Superman Legacy, which would be a lot of fun. And that's great, because Jason's always wanted to play that character, so that's a lot of fun. So I'm a big Jason Momoa fan. I think it's very rare to hear an honest assessment from anyone in this industry. As I said earlier, when we hear shills telling us how amazing the Flash movie was, and there's no balance to the opinions, it's a problem to me. It's a situation I find very, very depressing. It's a situation the industry itself must change, because it's not right. I don't like it. I don't like it one little bit. And so we need to look at that as an industry. And so you, the consumer, have a fair assessment of a movie. It's not about if a movie is good or bad. It's about a critic telling you, right, I went to see this movie, these are my feelings, so it's about this does this and this does that. It's not about, these days we get it's bad, it's good, it's the bestest ever. Well, that is not an honest assessment of a movie. You need the old reviews 30, 40 years ago. What a root, tooth and branch kind of analysis of a film and its very essence and what it does. And this is what we've lost today. Someone coming onto YouTube and saying, it's the bestest ever, doesn't tell me anything. It makes me suspect that you're a fucking shill and you're a fucking liar, and it means I don't trust you. So great honesty from Jason Momoa, absolutely baffled by the success of Aquaman, and talks about the climate change commentary in Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom, and Peter Safran saying he hopes to work with Jason at DC Studios for many, many years. I think that's a really good thing. Just closing off today's video, I rewatched Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. I think in my non-spoiler review, not Aquaman, what did I say? No, I rewatched Shazam, Fury of the Gods. I'm losing it. I think I was too kind about this film in my non-spoiler review on my channel. One of the worst things about this movie is Wonder Woman's cameo. It's cringe, everyone. They really did damage the reputation of Gal's Wonder Woman. First of all, when they use her theme, it just feels out of place. The way she struts, it really is bad. The thing is with Shazam Fury of the Gods, it's got a few good things in it, but a lot of it just feels out of place. It feels uncomfortable. It feels cringy. Let me tell you about Shazam Fury of the Gods. And it's obvious to see why it failed. It's a bit like when your parents turn up to school or turn up to a party and they embarrass you. You feel, no, this is cringe. They're showing pictures of me when I was a kid. That's exactly how Shazam Fury of the Gods feels to me. And I don't think David F. Sandberg did a good job of this movie. I don't think the writers of this movie did a good job of this movie. And I don't think the villains in this movie worked at all. I didn't really understand the motivations. They didn't feel like sisters. There was nothing going on here whatsoever. And I'm just happy that Zaslav understands we need to move away from that franchise. Whether or not Zack Snyder was the answer for DC, what I will say to you is Walter Hamada certainly wasn't the solution to Zack Snyder. This has been Saturday's edition of the DC Universe Daily with me, Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. Please like, share, comment, subscribe. Hit the notification bell so you never miss this beautiful perfection. Smash the like button if you love me. Subscribe if you're new. Please have your say. And I will see you tomorrow on Sunday for more DC Universe Daily. And remember, early this morning here in Cyprus, we had Zack Snyder's Q&A for Man of Steel. Same time, same place, they're doing BVS. Then on Sunday, it's the Snyder Cut on IMAX, in IMAX for the first time. Wow, I'm so jealous I can't get to see that. Now, hopefully, like BVS, he releases that version on 4K and Blu-ray because that would be awesome. I will see you for Sunday's edition of the DC Universe Daily. Have a lovely Saturday. Bye for now. That's Thunder. I'm scared. I'm going to hide under my bed. See you later.